I don't know why I'm so nervous to do this one. I love this movie so much. I want to do it justice, you know? Okay, so picture you are in LA, you're like an ad executive PR type person, and the movie opens on you at this Santa themed commercial type shoot. We later learn it's like a razor ad, all these hot male models in shirtless Santa outfits. And they're it's taking forever. And Peter, that's you. It's I know we're gonna get to the party, but just we gotta finish this shoot. We gotta finish this shoot. My boss is crazy. You gotta get all these shots for me. And Peter's talking to the model's agent, and it's who are you going to the big party with this year? And Peter's my roommate Nick, obviously, and then my new boyfriend. And the agent is oh, your new boyfriend, in this way that kind of tells you that he goes through a lot of men. And Peter is yeah, it's been 3 months and 22 days. And the agent's okay, sure. So shoot ends. We go home. We meet Peter's roommate, Nick, who is the best. He's a TaskRabbit. That's very important to the plot. And we're reminded of that a lot, to the point that I wonder if TaskRabbit sponsored the movie. He also has a very adorable dog named Emmett, who comes up later as well. So they go to the Christmas party. We meet up with the male models and their agent. Everyone who's everyone gets to come to this party in LA for the holidays. It's plaid themed. They've been friends, we now learn, Peter and Nick, for almost a decade. They moved to LA at the same time, had to climb social ladders for a year, and they got invited to this party. So great. And then Peter's new boyfriend comes. He's a cardiologist. I don't remember his name, and we'll get to that soon. He's super hot. They're at this plant wall taking photos. Peter loves plants, and he's I want to have a plant shop one day, and they're just vibing. It's great. Peter is I'm so excited to go home because I'm always single at the holidays, and it'll be great to have a boyfriend. And you know what? Come with me to New Hampshire. Let's have the holidays together. And the boyfriend's that's great. This is gonna be so much fun. So yeah, Peter goes to a coffee shop the next day, and we meet all the family through FaceTime, talking about gifts and what to get them. We learn he has his 2 parents and 2 sisters. We'll meet them all later. And he teases the boyfriend. Then Nick, TaskRabbit, right, is at some lady's house hanging her Christmas lights. And she is so funny and is I'm so glad that you were available because our old guy Carl, who used to hang the lights, wasn't answering my texts, and I found out he died hanging someone's Christmas lights. Thank God you were available. And Nick is cool. Maybe I should focus so that I don't also die. And she's okay, no worries. And then her husband drives up. It's I'll leave you alone. So Nick's hanging the lights and looking down to the husband come. And the husband's oh, is it Carl? And the wife's no, Carl died. This guy is great. Who is her husband? Peter's boyfriend. And he's even worse that he's cheating is bad enough. But he looks at the roof, looks at Nick, and he doesn't recognize him. They've been dating for 3 months and 22 days, and you were literally at a Christmas party last night with your boyfriend and his roommate, and you don't recognize his roommate and best friend. They're not casual, whatever roommates. This is his best friend, and you don't recognize this man on your roof hanging Christmas lights. Savage. So obviously, Nick goes home and tells Peter. Peter reads this man to filth on the phone and is good luck working out. All you have to work out. And also, how did this man think he was going to get away with spending Christmas in New Hampshire with his boyfriend and abandoning his wife and children when his wife is so into Christmas they're hanging lights on a roof? What was the plan, random man? So screw you. Goodbye. Peter's obviously very sad. He's talking to his plants. We learn that Peter got all these plants because the plants helped him through heartbreak. He nurtured them, nurtured himself. He's packing for New Hampshire. He's obviously very bummed because now he's single again. And he's talking about his romantic past a bit and how he apparently chipped a tooth once running away from a guy who pretended to have cancer. At the time, mounting therapy debt, maybe I'll move home and be an uncle and just chill there. And Nick is all right, sure. And then Peter is you should come home with me. And he's joking. We should just pretend to be in love. And you can be my new boyfriend. And Nick is yeah, right. And Peter is wait a minute, though. And somehow Peter convinces Nick to come home with him and pretend they fall in love for all these years. Nick had a perfect staycation planned. Peter did not care about Nick being home alone for the holidays until he needed Nick to be the fake boyfriend. So now they're going to New Hampshire. Emmett is at the doggy hotel. Also important is that Nick only really has the money to fly like back last minute like this because he's always saving Emmett money. Saving Emmett is his children's book. It's a bestseller about his dog. So he's like a TaskRabbit and very frugal, but also a best-selling author. That's important later. So they fly into New Hampshire. Peter's so excited for this plan to lie about being boyfriends. They get home. Mom is there. Everything is great. Perfect New England home. Like 10 out of 10 Nancy Meyers edition. And Mom is like, guess what? I got you a surprise early Christmas gift. A blind date with a guy who works at my gym. And Peter is like, no. And Nick is like, I love it. And Peter is like, we had a plan. We are being fake boyfriends. We are announcing this tonight. And Nick is like, no, screw the plan. You're wrong on this date. And Nick just like bans it. And Peter is just like, okay, whatever. Like, thanks for that. So the rest of the family comes. They meet the sisters. Each sister has 2 sets of kids. So Jocelyn from Schitt's Creek has 2 daughters. And then the other sister, Ashley, who's also starting a makeup line called Farm on My Face. Like, Farm on My Face. I can't make this up. She has 2 sons. And the 2 sons are obsessed with Nick's children's book, Saving Emmett. So they have dinner. We learn that all of the kids are in the Christmas pageant being put on by their aunt, who is a former off-Broadway understudy, according to the mom, who's like hilariously bitter. And in waltzes their aunt, Jennifer Coolidge. Jennifer Coolidge playing the Christmas director who comes in singing Joy to the World by Whitney Houston. Iconic. So she comes in, whole family's together, talking about the blind date, it's a whole thing. Next day, Peter goes to the gym and he meets the blind date, who is James, his hot trainer, who is also in Brothers and Sisters and some other stuff. They hit it off, they go on a date, they even buy a Christmas tree for his family, it's all great, and it's just very fun. Peter and Nick also run at the wine store because Peter's been on his date and Nick's been with the family, and they act way too surprised to run each other at the wine store. It's like me going to the mailbox, seeing my neighbor and being like, what are you doing here? It's like, it's not that surprising. So, yeah, family is all together, date's going well, everyone's super excited, except for the 2 teenage daughters, because at dinner last night, they immediately clocked. They were like, why are Peter and Nick not together? So they are like, you should be together. And the dad is also kind of like, yeah, I think so. So there's some like growing like stuff. Next day, Peter goes on a skiing date with James while Nick takes all the kids to the pageant. And we get to witness Jennifer Coolidge being the director extraordinaire. Like, I would watch the entire movie with just her scenes. It was iconic. It is like right up there with her White Lotus performance. It is, Aunt Sandy is just the best role. She is so good. She's like, I'm gonna lose it. Do you all want to see me lose it? Like, it was so good. So good. And also hilarious because she's dealing with Nick and Peter and she could have just been like, these gays trying to kill me once again. So that's happening. And the teens are like, you should be with Peter. While Nick is like, no. And Peter's on this date and he can't stop talking about Nick, but not in like I love you way, just like in a my roommate's so cool way. So all that happens. The teens are sending pictures of them and Nick to Peter. And then they all get home and Nick is like, oh wait, you really going to like this guy, James. And Peter's like, well, like I kind of like him, but really I like being home. I want to move home. And Nick is like, oh, I'm going to miss you. And Peter is like, I don't really love anybody in LA but you. And it's this very heartfelt moment. And of course, Nick has strung the lights on Peter's family's house as well because he's a TaskRabbit. He's always doing things. Of course, the entire family is watching them talking from inside. And now the entire family minus Peter's mom is on board that they should be together. So that's like happening as well. So they also decide that the way to get them together is to get them to help Aunt Sandy, Jennifer Coolidge, with the Christmas pageant. So the next day they go to help her and there's a beautiful montage of Joy to the World, Whitney Houston's edition, where they just like revamp the show and it's so great. And then, of course, we have left LA, but LA is not left to us. We're practicing our lines that night when Peter's nightmare of a boss is like, hey, I know it's Christmas and you're not here, but this entire, like, very expensive ad campaign, I don't like it. Let's reshoot it. So Peter has to take photos of Nick in his parents' backyard for this razor ad. And he's like, has the razor cream on his face, and he's like in the woods, and it's so fun and playful. And we get the little like hints of like, wait, I feel like Peter does like Nick. There's a little moment happening here. But just at that moment, James texts Peter to get a drink. And I'm just like, bad timing. So they have a little tete-a-tete. Nick's like, you should go. And Peter's like, I don't want to go. And Nick's like, you do want to go. And Peter's like, you should come. And Nick is like, I'm not going to come. I'm a third wheel. And Peter's like, no, you're not. And Nick's like, I literally am. And Peter's like, fine, I'll go. So Peter goes to the bar, which happens to be the bar owned by Peter's sister, because it's a small town. Duh. So the girls come over to spend the night, and they're like, where's Peter? And Nick is like, with James. And they're like, ugh. And Nick is like, let this go. So Nick goes to do a TaskRabbit job, because he's just like, no rest for the weary. And the girls are like, okay, Mom, get this date ruined, and we're going to go find Nick. So at the bar, Mom is like spilling drinks on James and telling him awful things about Peter, like how Peter is responsible for global warming. I can't make this up. And Peter is still talking about Nick, but Peter is still not like, he's still like just my friend. Anyway, the girls go to the place where Nick is once again hanging Christmas lights. Like, how much money is this man making? And they're like, we're going to take this ladder off this roof, and we're not going to put it back until you admit that you love our uncle. And Nick is like, I'm sorry. Excuse me? But of course, they get him to admit it. And of course, Nick has been in love with Peter all this time. So they get him to admit that. And then put the ladder back so that Nick doesn't get fired. So that happens. Peter continues his date. For some reason, Peter also gets photos of James for this new razor ad campaign, but the chemistry is not quite there like it was with Nick's photo shoot. Peter goes home. Of course, the girls are sleeping in his bed. Peter sleeps in bed with Nick, but they don't like hook up yet. They're just like getting closer. Next day, Christmas pageant, full of one-liners, just a goddamn delight. And of course, at the pageant, James catches like Peter and Nick watching together from the back, looking very coupley. So it's like all the seeds are coming together. After the play, like, oh, sorry, I forgot a very important moment. A couple beats back, Nick was doing whatever in the house, and Peter was helping the girls with their costumes. And the girls also got Peter to admit that Peter loves Nick. But Peter is afraid of losing Nick as a friend. And then they all do a really great Britney Spears choreographed number that, like, Peter taught the girls when they were kids. And while they're all dancing around, and Nick comes, and the, like, little cousins come, and everyone's there, the girls tell Nick that Peter loves him too. So now, Nick loves Peter, and he knows that Peter loves him, and Peter loves Nick, but Peter does not know that Nick loves him. So, fast forwarding, back to the pageant, after the pageant, and Nick's going to tell him. And Nick is like, I love you. And Peter's like, yeah, I love you too. And Nick is like, no, I love you. And it's all looking great. And then Peter is like, no. I cannot lose you as a friend. And I'm moving back here. And it's not going to work. And then, of course, James walks in again with his bad timing. But they're all blowing up on Instagram because the Razor ad campaign is going really well. And his boss put it together. So they go back to his sister's bar. And it's like a whole thing. And Nick is like, I'll be right there. I'm just going to go check on Emmett, my dog. But really, Nick is leaving. He's going to leave New Hampshire because he's like, I've been spurned, love unrequited, these teenage girls ruining my life. So he goes back home to pack, looks at the cab prices, expensive Uber to the airport, Christmas Eve. And of course, what does he do instead of going to the airport? One last TaskRabbit gig. Crazy. But this time, he's not hanging lights. He's painting a store. Interesting. So all this is happening, and Peter and James are at the bar waiting for him. And basically, like, James is like, this is not going to work. Like, we're not a match, and you love Nick. And Peter is like, whoa. And James is very nice about it, and is like, go after him. So Peter goes back to the house and discovers that Nick is gone, and it's like, oh my God. And he tries to, like, go to the airport, but then he's, like, going through town and sees the rental car and sees where Nick is TaskRabbiting, as always. And he's, like, so flustered. He's like, why didn't you answer my text? And where did you go? And blah, blah. And Nick is like, it has literally been 12 minutes. And my phone is in my pocket because I'm literally painting a store. And just this whole flurry. And Nick is like, got you a Christmas gift. And Peter's like, we don't do gifts. And Nick is like, well, this year is different because you're going to be like moving home and also like all this stuff. And so what has Nick done? Nick has bought Peter the store he is painting because the hardware store guy is going to sell it. And so in these 12 minutes, Nick has like bought it with his best-selling book money for this man who is his best friend, who doesn't love him back, who is moving away because he loves him that much. And Peter is like, oh my God, wait, I love this man too. So they obviously kiss, and it's like beautiful. And Peter is like, wow, are you gonna like move back here with me and help me run this store? And Nick is like, I mean, I'll help you a little bit, but I have my own thing because I finally have the idea for the sequel to my best-selling children's book. And it's all exciting and beautiful, and it snows, obviously. And Peter is like, well, now we get to tell my family that we're together. And Nick is like, we came here to do that anyway. And so beautiful. Christmas morning, last scene, everyone's hanging out. Nick gives the final present to the two boys who loved his first book, naming Emmett, because another plot that I skipped over is that they kind of like gave him an idea for the second one. And so it skips right to the end, and it's like, and Peter and Nick pick up Emmett from the dog hotel, and then they move to New Hampshire together. And then Peter is like, together. And they kiss, and the whole family cheers, and it's so beautiful. And then at the end, this snowplow guy like sings a song, Jennifer Coolidge, which is really nice. And that is the story of Single All the Way. It has everything. New England, Nancy Meyers, home, love triangles, family, joy to the world, Whitney Houston, Jennifer Coolidge, like everything. And you will love it. I have watched it approximately 100 times this year. Like, I watched it every day last week, so I recommend it. Okay, Merry Christmas. Bye!